Scrimmage number 1, it's coming up this morning. Who needs to stand out? What are the top things I'm looking for coming out of Tennessee Fall Camp Scrimmage number 1? That, whole lot more. It's Thursday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Thursday, everybody. Welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols. It is your team every single day. We're part of Locked On Podcast Network, covering Tennessee Volunteers every single weekday morning, 30 minutes or less. This show is brought to you in part by Birddogs. All right, go to birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege. Enter that promo code LockedOnCollege for a free white tech hat with any purchase. You won't want to take your Birddogs off. I promise you that. Got a fun show coming up here today. I'm Eric Kane. You can always find me on Twitter @_Kaner. Continuing to navigate through Tennessee Fall Football Camp and Scrimmage number 1. It's finally here on a Thursday morning. I'm going to give you the things I'm looking forward to, the things that I need to see from Tennessee in Scrimmage number 1. Segment 2, Ryan Schumpert, our buddy from Rocky Top Insider, is going to stop by, give us his thoughts on Tennessee Fall Camp so far. And then in segment 3, there's kind of an offensive narrative out there about the Tennessee offense, how it won't translate to the NFL. Kelsey Pope kind of spoke on that, and going to get his comments in segment number 3. Plus, the first installment of the Locked On Network's Top 25 college football poll is out. I voted in that. I'll show you what me and my peers voted on for the top 25. That's coming up in segment 3. So, a fun show coming up here today, but again, for the scrimmage coming up here this morning. It's not going to be perfect. Again, I've kind of told you guys and kind of warned about, you hear stuff about the offensive line. I say stuff about the offensive line. It's not time to panic whatsoever because the defensive line and the defense overall is kind of ahead right now, and that's normal, to be early on in camp. But, it's a scrimmage right now, and so you want to start finding some answers and to see if anybody kind of separates themselves. But again, it's not going to be perfect. I expect some penalties. I expect maybe a couple of turnovers. I expect some sloppy play. The first scrimmage of fall camp or spring practice, it's never great, to be just brutally honest with you. Now, you still want to see some guys going out there and make some plays and score some touchdowns and all that, of course, but it's never going to be picture perfect. Nothing ever will be. But here's kind of what I'm looking forward to, hearing, and what I need to hear from the things I'm looking out for essentially in scrimmage number 1. Number 1. I am looking for clean football. You don't want turnovers from your quarterback. You don't want your quarterback to throw interceptions. You don't want your quarterback to fumble. You don't want your running backs to fumble. It's kind of a catch-22 here, right? It's if you don't fumble, that means you're not forcing any turnovers, which is not great. But you don't want anybody to fumble, and you don't want anybody to throw interceptions. You want to turn the football over. Good football teams, offensive football teams, don't turn the football over. So if you're Joe Milton, if you're Nico Imaliava, if you're with these running backs, you take care of that football. That's the first thing I'm looking for, is no turnovers for the Tennessee offense. Number 2, no pre-snap penalties. No procedural penalties, no anything like that. The stuff you saw at Georgia last year when it was so freaking loud you couldn't even hear yourself think. You don't want any pre-snap penalties. That's been something that Tennessee's been kind of played with in its first scrimmage over the last couple of years in fall camp and in spring practice. A lot of procedural penalties, essentially. And again, this is the time for it. So if you do have a bunch of penalties, then it is what it is. It's scrimmage number 1 of fall camp. This is the time to do it. But it would be great if Tennessee would not have any pre-snap penalties in terms of illegal motion, illegal procedure, delay a game. Tennessee probably won't get a delay a game whatsoever, but that type of stuff. So you don't want any pre-snap penalties if you're Tennessee. Number 3, I'm looking for this offensive line, big time. So far, it's not been the best start to camp. Again, it's not the end of the world, but I'd like to start finding some answers here. You're not going to find final answers here after today's scrimmage, okay? Let me be abundantly clear. Just because, say, someone has a bad day doesn't mean they're not going to be a starter, or just because someone you'll look good doesn't mean that they're going to be a starter. There's 2 more scrimmages in fall camp, and there's a lot more practice days ahead. So, but I am looking for the offensive line. At points in times with Cooper Mays, who I don't expect to play in the scrimmage today. He's dealing with some minor stuff right now, but again, it's way more important for Cooper Mays to be healthy and ready to go for the first game of the season than anything in fall camp. The center position has been kind of a struggle for Tennessee without Cooper Mays in there. And so, if it's Addison Nichols, what does he look like in the scrimmage? If it's Ollie Lane, who is, very much in the conversation at left guard to slide down and play center, what does he look like? And what's that offensive line look like? And so obviously I'm looking for, the center position in particular. And of course, is there anybody going to be separated at right tackle at left guard? And does Gerald Mincey play any right tackle in scrimmage number 1? He's pretty much been only on the left side so far. I mean, they say that they're cross-training a little bit, and I'm not there to watch, so who am I to say that they're lying? But so far, everything we hear and everything that, we see in practice, it's Gerald Mincey behind John Campbell at left tackle. Does he get any snaps at right tackle today? So that's kind of what I'm looking for on the offensive end. Of course, I want to see who scores touchdowns, big plays, explosive plays, all that type of stuff. That's fun, but that's pretty much what I'm looking for offensively. Now, defensively, you want to create some turnovers. You want to create some havoc. I fully expect the defensive line to win the day. I fully expect the defensive line to have a good scrimmage and to beat up on the offensive line. That happens early in camp. It's happened already in practice a little bit. And so that is what I'm expecting. Can you get to the quarterback? Of course, you're not going to be able to bring Joe Milton down. They're going to blow the whistle dead and all that. But can you get back there to get some what would be sacks? What do those Leo positions look like? I'm looking at that defensive line. Then I'm looking at some young guys. Hey, how does Aaron Carter, a linebacker, look? How does he play? How does Jeremiah Thielander look at linebacker? What about Elijah Herring? He's a sophomore, but as he continued to step and take steps in the right direction? What's that front seven look like? I'm really intrigued. I think a lot of veterans, they'll play some, but they're not going to play the whole entire time. And again, I don't expect Cooper Mays, a guy like Cooper Mays, to play at all. And then I'm looking at the secondary. Excuse me. Big time questions in the secondary. We know that. Who's going to play corner? Who's going to play safety? Tamarian McDonald, Wesley Walker, Jordan Thomas. Those guys have been a bit banged up this week, and so they haven't been playing an awful lot and practicing an awful lot. That means there's opportunity for Andre Turrentine. There's opportunity for Jalen McCullough. Of course, he's played an awful lot. There's opportunity for some of these young guys like John Slaughter. Who's out there in the secondary and who's working with the one group at corner? Is it Kamal Haddon, Danico Slaughter? Is it Brandon Turnage and Gabe Judy-Lally? Is it, where are these freshmen at? I mean, there's so many possibilities for Tennessee in the back end that's when I say that we need to start seeing some guys separate from one another. That's what I really mean. Like, who is moving the needle? Who is jumping out in front of the pack? I fully expected Danico Slaughter to be a starter at cornerback on this football team. Right now, if I had to say who's the second, Warren Burrell's another one that I haven't even mentioned. And if Tamarian McDonald doesn't play tomorrow, who's going to play the star? Is it going to be Warren Burrell, playing the star position tomorrow? If I told you today and they were playing today and it was starting the day, the two cornerbacks I would say is Danico Slaughter and probably Kamal Haddon, but I'm very unsure about that second cornerback. Is it going to be Gabe Judy-Lally? I want to see some of those guys kind of separate themselves in the back end. So scrimmage number 1, it's a big opportunity. I call this moving day, or I call the day after scrimmage number 1, which essentially they will have Friday off. So Saturday would be moving day because you'll come in, you'll look up on the, in your position groups and your position rooms and pre-practice meetings, you'll look up at the depth chart and it'll be all jumbled. Where are you on that day? It's moving day after scrimmage number 1. So that's kind of what I'm keeping an eye on. I'll be talking to some people who are in-house. Of course, media can't go to the scrimmage. I'll be making some phone calls. We'll be trying to figure out some things that are going on. And, of course, I'll relay those informations and those notes to you about Tennessee scrimmage number 1 here on a Friday Locked On Vols. Guys, I appreciate you. When we come back, we'll hear from Ryan Shumpert, my buddy over at Rocky Top Insider. He's going to tell you what he thinks so far of Tennessee fall football camp. That is coming up next right here on Locked On Vols. I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. Football season, it's almost here, guys. College football and then the NFL will be right around the corner from that. And go to FanDuel because it's giving you the chance to win all season long. Because right now, when you bet on the Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. That is not bad. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl before the season starts, and you'll get bonus bets back for every single victory. You go on over to FanDuel.com, and you can bet on the spreads, the player props, the totals, the overs as that under hits, and a whole lot more. Individual prop bets are so much fun during football season, and you can get them all at FanDuel Sportsbook. So, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, it's America's #1 sportsbook. Guys, we got a big push on the YouTube channel. Can't thank you enough. 8K by opening day, essentially, is what I've phrased it. We're going to get there maybe by the end of this week, and I can't thank you enough. If you're listening, if you're watching on YouTube, and you haven't subscribed to Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel, please, it helps me out tremendously. Just go subscribe. Take 2 seconds out of your day, and I will be forever grateful. Of course, wherever you find your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, all that good stuff, please hit subscribe, follow, all that good stuff, and we're a top 100 podcast in America, and it's because of you guys, you everydayers, you every damn dayers. I love y'all. Thank you so much for being here. Ryan Shumpert of Rocky Top Insider. I had a chance to catch up with him prior to the scrimmage coming up today. Ask him a number of questions about who stood out to him in fall camp. What's he expecting out of scrimmage number one? All that and more. Here is my conversation with Rocky Top Insider's Ryan Shumpert. Ryan Shumpert, RTI, so far about a week and a half into fall camp. Of course, scrimmage number one coming up later today. What have you seen? What have you liked from Tennessee football?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things to like. First is just looking at the depth and the bodies out there and how much different, really, to me, it is even from just last year when Tennessee obviously had a great season, but I think it's easy to tell that Josh Heupel's had 2 full recruiting classes in there, and I don't know how much those, especially freshmen, but even sophomores, helped this team this year, but it's clear there's a lot more depth. There's clear there's a lot more guys that look like they belong in the SEC, so I think that's the first thing that stands out. I think Joe Milton's looked good in what we've seen, so obviously kind of too hard to tell a lot of details on that stuff, but I think Tennessee's got to be pretty happy with where they are a week and a half into camp.
Of course, we'll learn more today, and we'll learn more as camp goes on, and I don't think it's time to hit the panic button, but I do think a concern of this football team would be the offensive line and trying to figure out not only who's going to start at left guard and right tackle, but also if Cooper Mays were to not play, who's going to snap the football. I think the defensive line and a result, the offensive line kind of getting pushed around by them has been a storyline so far through camp.
Definitely. I think going into camp, I had the secondary is kind of concerned 1A, offensive line 1B. Now a week and a half in, I'd flip those two, and it might just be offensive line 1-2 defensive backs. So you're right. I think the right tackle spot becomes a lot more curious now that Gerald Mincey's slid back to left tackle. I have a hard time thinking he's going to start over Miami transfer John Campbell. So that really leaves, obviously Dane Davis, Larry Johnson are repping over there too, but that's basically Jeremiah Crawford's job. And then the center one, something we've known about even since the spring when Addison Nichols was basically exclusively working at center. Cooper Mays has been out. I think yesterday was his 3rd straight practice he missed. It's been interesting. Ollie Lane slid over to that center spot from what we've seen. That would be an interesting development. And Andrej Karic transferred that. I don't know if we all wrote him off in the spring, but it didn't feel like he was going to have a massive role in this team. He's kind of slid in that starting left guard spot when Lane works at center. So that's been really interesting, and I think maybe the number one thing I'll be curious to hear about later today from Tennessee's first scrimmage.
You listen to what Rodney Gardner said earlier in the week, and my 2 biggest takeaways, obviously, Tyler Barron bought into the program for maybe the first time, and Elijah Simmons also being bought in and trying to be that number 10 and not that number 51. Ryan, if those 2 guys can play and reach up to their potential, that defensive line really will be a force when you consider all the other guys out there.
Oh, 100%. And I thought that was the best quote we've gotten all fall so far. Rodney Gardner talking about, we get number 10 out there some days, we get 51. We need 10 all the time. You better be elite if you're going to wear that number as defensive tackle. And, he's always had the talent. It's about him being in shape and him keeping that motor high. Rodney Gardner talked about he doesn't have the motor necessarily to always push himself, but he's letting his teammates, he's letting his coaches push him. So all of a sudden, if Elijah Simmons is playing at a high level to go around with Amari Thomas and Omar Norman Lott, who I've been impressed with, the Arizona State transfer, all of a sudden the interior of Tennessee's defensive line is maybe not super, super deep, but at least 4 really, really quality players. And then I think the biggest question for Tennessee's defensive line is the pass rush, kind of tying that in with the secondary, improving their pass defense. And Tyler Barron, obviously not a Leo guy, a strong side defensive end, but we've seen flashes. There's been a handful of games where he's been really, really dominant rushing the passer. Probably don't win the Pitt game last year without what he did there. So he's as talented as at least any of the upperclassmen on the edge. So him putting it all together, having a big season, I think would certainly be huge for Tennessee.
Hearing Rodney Gardner say that room is starting to look championship caliber, I thought that was the biggest and most eye-opening comment of the day.
I wrote it in the practice observations that morning before we talked to him. He was getting on his guys pretty good. I guess that was Monday. And, Rodney Gardner's guy, he doesn't really mince words with the media. He will rip some guys, as he kind of, poked at Chandavian Bradley a little bit with a comment he made, I guess, back last week. So you're right. Some of those coaches, when they're hyping guys up, they're hyping things up, they're positive people, they're talking to the media. Rodney Gardner's not afraid to rip some guys. So I think that was really eye-opening. And again, another spot that Tennessee's had a lot of pretty good players, a lot of SEC level players, not a lot of all SEC level players. One or two of those guys make that jump, and to Rodney Garner's point, Tennessee could be good enough to go play football in big time areas in January if that comes to fruition.
Tell me I'm wrong. Tennessee's wide receivers, best position group on the team.
I'm hard pressed to tell you you're wrong. I mean, I think the defensive line could push it. Maybe the linebackers if a couple of those young players take a big step forward. But it feels like the easiest bet. 4 really good guys. I'm convinced they're going to play 4. I've always been, and I won't believe that they're going to play 3. I think they're going to play 4. Dante Thornton looks like an NFL receiver. Squirrel White, we saw what he could do last year, and then Brew McCoy and Ramel Keaton at the worst are really, really solid players. So that's 4 really good guys. I think they have depth there with Nimrod and Caleb Webb. So I would agree with that assessment.
All right, who are you expecting to hear good things out of the scrimmage for coming up today?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the running backs, Dylan Sampson, Jalen Wright, I expect to hear good things about Dante Thornton on the offensive side. And then the defensive side, I think it's about those defensive linemen we talked about, Tyler Bear and Elijah Simmons. Can they turn that over to the game? And then maybe the guys that I want to hear good things about, I think it would be a huge win for Tennessee if you hear good things about Arian Carter, Danico Slaughter, Andre Turrentine, or Wesley Walker's kind of been banged up, but if he's out there, any of those safeties besides Jalen McCullough, and then Danico Slaughter feels like a guy that could maybe separate himself at corner, which Tennessee really didn't have at all last year.
Yeah, I'm hoping we hear some things about the secondary because, I mean, when we're out here watching, they're just drilling.
Yeah.
And we don't really get to see who's going with the ones and all that. We can make the assumption that, for the safeties, especially with some injuries, but those corners, I'd love to hear about a pecking order. All right, last thing. One person maybe, or maybe two, that has really surprised you maybe so far in fall camp.
Yeah, I'm not sure about surprise, but Ethan Davis, again, impressed in the spring. He had the collarbone injury in the Orange and White game. How good would he look out there immediately in fall camp? He's looked pretty darn good. And again, it's all about the blocking with him. I think he's Tennessee's best pass catcher pass catching tight end, probably from the day he stepped on campus. So he's one guy. And then on the defensive side of the ball, really 2 guys that I'm intrigued by. Slaughter, who I just mentioned, he looks physically bigger. He just has an edge and a confidence that he plays with that not a lot of Tennessee corners play with. He gets burnt some, but he makes some plays, and Tennessee doesn't have too many guys make plays. And then another guy that just, I'm curious then, to me, he looks better physically. I still think a second-year leap probably would be pushing it too much, but John Slaughter at the safety spot. Tennessee just doesn't have much depth there. Wesley Walker, as I just mentioned, hasn't been out there at all at Tennessee's practices, so I think he'll get opportunities, and he's a guy that I'll be curious to see what he can do.
Always appreciate Ryan Shumpert for taking some time out and joining the show. Thank you so much for checking out the show, Locked On Vols, and of course all my work and my colleagues' work at VolQuest.com. But hey, Ryan Shumpert does some awesome work over at RTI as well. I encourage you to check out his work. When we come back, the offensive narrative, for Josh Heupel's offense, it plagued Hendon Hooker, it plagued Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman a little bit. Kelsey Pope, I don't want to say sounds off on it, but he kind of gives a response to that. And also debuting the first ever Locked On Podcast Network Top 25 for the college football poll. Where did I vote and how did my colleagues vote? That's coming up next right here on Locked On Vols. But hey, I want to tell you about our friends over at Birddogs. Birddogs, proud sponsor of the show. They make you look good. Stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you truly a sculpted look. Shorts, the Birddog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit way better. They fit way better than the regular shorts because those regular shorts are made of stiff, restricting cotton, but Birddogs fixed that issue by inventing a cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches so you can get a slimmer fit without sacrificing movement for your everyday life. Plus, this might be the best thing for us guys, right? Birddogs uses an anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Birddogs is really, really cool. Plus, they give a new, if you go in here and you put in the promo code Locked On College, they give a new free white tech hat. If you're watching on YouTube right now, look at this hat. Look how stylish this is right now, and you can get one for yourself for free by entering the promo code at Locked On College. They do anything, go anywhere, any type of occasion. Versatility is name of the game with Birddogs, with the slacks and the shorts. I got a pair of both. I got a couple pairs of both, and I am feeling good, and I am in style everywhere I go because of Birddogs. So you can too. I encourage you to go to birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege or enter the promo code LockedOnCollege for a free white tech hat with your order. If you're watching on YouTube, it's this right here. That's birddogs.com/lockedoncollege or promo code lockedoncollege for a free white tech hat. You won't want to take off your Bird Dogs. We promise you that. All right, guys, we got a final segment left here at Locked On Vols on a Thursday. Can't wait to hear about the scrimmage, who showed out, who did what. I'll relay everything I hear to you guys on Locked On Vols on Friday's show. So go ahead and set those alarms, those reminders. When a new episode drops, you'll be notified. Automatic downloads and Apple Podcasts. That's how you can never miss a thing right here on Locked On Vols. Okay, so I kind of been teasing it. We'll get to Kelsey Pope here in a moment, but we talked about where Tennessee was ranked in the first installment of the USA Today Coaches Poll earlier this week. Tennessee was ranked at number 10. So us at Locked On, the college channel, there's about 60 or 70 of us. We're a pretty big group. We decided that enough's enough. We've been talking about it for a couple of years. We're going to do our own poll, and we're going to have a graphic made and all that, and I can bring it on the show every single week, and we can talk about if it's right, wrong, and different. And I didn't save my poll I sent in. I should have saved it. I apologize. But I will start saving how I vote every single week and showing you guys if you must know. So I really got to do my homework this year. I have always been on the narrative that if you are an AP voter and you cover a team, like you're a beat reporter for a team, you shouldn't vote on the AP. And I wholeheartedly believe that, because if you are doing your job with everything that it entails, you are consumed in your one team, that you often don't get to watch as much football as you'd like. I mean, honestly, guys, I'm always doing something during football season, and I'm lucky to watch a couple games on Saturday outside of Tennessee. And Sunday's a work day and all that. I'm not trying to throw a little pity party for me, but it's tough. But this is going to be fun. I'm gonna really lock down and take this seriously this year. And I'm gonna share it here on Locked On Vols. But anyway, this is how the Locked On College podcast hosts voted on the first annual Top 25. If you're watching on YouTube right now, you can see it. And though you got those of you guys who are listening, I will go ahead and tell you what it looks like. So the first one, first and foremost, let's not bury the lead here. Tennessee is ranked in this poll at number 13. And again, that's where I thought Tennessee would be ranked, to be completely honest. And when the AP poll comes out next week, that's where I'm expecting Tennessee, somewhere around 12 to 14, 15, somewhere around there. I would have them on this side of 15, meaning the lower side, the better side, if you will. Anytime you talk about polls, higher or lower, it gets kind of confusing. But I would have Tennessee anywhere around 12 or 13. I think I voted Tennessee preseason ranked 12 in my poll. Again, I didn't save it, but my fellow hosts at Locked On have Tennessee at 13, and that's fine. There's no disrespect there, guys. There's no disrespect. That's a really good seeding, going into a season based on everything you lost. And the way I look at these is, where is the team now? I think Josh mentioned this yesterday, and I couldn't agree more. It's like, where's the team now? In 2 or 3 weeks from now, if they have a loss or they've changed, I'll alter the way I vote. But where is this team now going into the season? And the fact that Tennessee is still considered a top 15 team by most polls, and this one at number 13 heading into the new season, speaks volumes. When you lost, I don't care what they say about Stetson Bennett and all that. I mean, Hendon Hooker was a damn Heisman finalist last year. He should have been. Of course, he wasn't. Should have been. Just literally no excuse why he shouldn't have been there. But anyway, you lose him, you lose Cedric Tillman, you lose Byron Young, Darnell Wright, you lose Jalen Hyatt. To be ranked 13th going into the season, that's good. That's good, guys. The rest of this poll looks like this. 1 is Georgia. That's the same as the AP. In fact, 1, 2, 3, 4 of Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Alabama. All the same teams, but there is one flip from what the coaches poll is to what this poll is. Georgia's at 1, Michigan's at 2, Ohio State is at 3, and Alabama's at 4. In the coaches poll, it's Alabama at 3 and Ohio State at 4. Southern Cal gets up there at number 5 with LSU at 6th. Those two teams were flip-flopped as well in the coaches poll. I voted... That's kind of how I voted, I'm pretty sure. The top 6 is exactly how I voted it. Georgia at 1, Michigan at 2, Ohio State 3, Alabama 4, Southern Cal at 5, LSU at 6. Penn State remains at 7. Clemson has jumped up to number 8. I had Clemson at like 12 or 13, to be honest with you. Florida State's at 9. Washington's at 10. Texas is at number 11. Utah is at number 12, and that's where Tennessee comes in at number 13. Notre Dame 14, Oregon 15, Kansas State at 16, UNC at 17, TCU at 18, Oregon State at 19, Wisconsin at 20. Ole Miss at 21, Oklahoma at 22, Texas Tech at 23, Iowa at 24, and Texas A&M is at 25. That is the first ever Locked On Top 25 poll, and I'll continue to bring that on the show each and every week and show you how I voted. All right, let's quickly shift gears here. The final thing I want to talk about here on today's show, Kelsey Pope was asked a couple of times when he met with the media on Wednesday, going through the draft process, Hendon Hooker, Hyatt, Tillman, they were all kind of docked a little bit because they played in the Josh Heupel offense. They played in the Josh Heupel offense. It doesn't translate to the NFL, right? But then you see videos and clips all week long of Jalen Hyatt absolutely tearing up Giants camp. You see videos and highlight reels all week long of Cedric Tillman tearing up the Hall of Fame game. And Kelsey Pope was kind of asking about it, like, hey, do you hear that narrative? How do you deal with that in recruiting and all that? I thought he gave a good answer. This is what he had to say. This is Kelsey Pope on kind of going to the other side of that narrative right here.
100%. I think what people don't understand, they try to just kind of make up, right? But it's my job as a coach to answer questions in the recruiting process, right? Like, our offense, puts guys in situations to win one-on-one matchups. Defenses are supposed to stop guys in those one-on-one situations, right? Like, it doesn't matter at the end of the day what the scheme is, what the play call is. Like, I'm giving a technique to beat a defensive player. He's giving a technique to beat me. If I'm beating him 10 out of 10 times, like, I can translate that on any level, and that's what it comes down to. Now, guys have different skill sets. You show those in recruiting, right? Guys are put in different spots. You show those in recruiting. But at the end of the day, you got to win your matchup, and that's what it is here. That's what those guys have learned to do, and that's what they showed on Saturday, and that's why they're successful in the league. And there's no rhyme or reason to why they're doing it besides, it transitioned from what they did in college.
One-on-one matchups. My job as a coach is to get them in one-on-one matchups and teach them how to win those one-on-one matchups. Defense's job is to win those one-on-one matchups as well. The NFL is a one-on-one matchup league, so there's no reason why Jalen Hyatt, and there's no surprise why you've seen so many clips of Jalen Hyatt in training camp so far this week, because he's been balling out. He's got speed. He can beat those one-on-one mismatches. So I thought that was really, really cool. I thought he answered it the right way, Kelsey Pope. I love the quote there at the beginning of the phrase, well, people don't understand, they make up. Yeah. And that goes for all walks of life. Sports, business, politics, all that type of, sometimes even religion. When someone interprets something differently than you, it's just, it literally in all walks of life. And so I couldn't agree more. I thought that was a really, really good answer of how Kelsey Pope kind of tries to fight that narrative and also has to fight it in recruiting as well. Because, Dante Thornton, he talked yesterday as well, and he was like, yeah, there were some teams out there that were saying that I won't get developed and I won't turn into a true NFL prospect if I go to Tennessee. And he said he heard that during the transfer portal cycle when he was determining if he wanted to go here or somewhere else. And so it's real, it's out there. But hey, as long as you keep scoring touchdowns, having 1,000 yards, I don't think anybody cares because you're being productive. And, of course, Tennessee's winning football games in the meantime. That is going to do it for this edition of Locked On Vols. Big thanks to Ryan Shumpert for stopping by the show. Big thanks to you guys, as always, for tuning in, making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every day. Couldn't do it without you. Please subscribe to Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel. Subscribe, follow wherever you listen to our podcast. 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Leave me a positive review. All that stuff really does help get this video in front of Tennessee fans. We are a top 100 football podcast in America because of you every damn dayers. Couldn't do it without you. And we'll recap everything that is the scrimmage for Tennessee football on Friday's Locked On Vols. Until then, enjoy, guys. Happy Thursday.